Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste. Hello everyone. Welcome to my NPTEL course on interior design. Today we will talk about materials and finishes and we will be concentrating on paints. Basically, paint industry has great stake and a very important role when we talk about interior design projects. So, they create a lot of trends, they follow media and they create very interesting color palettes, finishes, textures, and they create very interesting contributions in the field of interior design projects by triggering these kinds of trends and important, interesting innovations in the field of paints and finishes. So, as the keywords that are highlighted over here, we are talking about materials and finishes. So, basically when we talk about paint industry, it's more about finishes. What are the kinds of surface finishes that we can apply on our wall surfaces or metal surfaces or on timber surfaces? What are the different kinds of polishes and different methods and mechanisms by which we can have interesting finishes and appearances of our surfaces? So, in that regard, paint industry is a very big player when we talk about interior architecture and interior design projects. So, going through this content, I'll be broadly talking about some interesting paint brands in India, and I will talk about the paint industry by giving a case of Asian Paints. Now, I have some experience of interacting with Asian Paints while I was working in Gujarat and later also. At IIT Roorkee, we also sometimes organize workshops in collaboration with Asian Paints. And since I have some experience of working with them, I have put this case study. And it will give a glimpse and an idea about other, paint brands also. So there may be different nomenclature, there may be different ranges, the color palette and variety may be different, but at least helping through Asian Paints, one could get the overall understanding of paint industry and its role in the discipline of interior design. So hence I am discussing that case at length over here. And there are some references also which you could follow later and have an in-depth understanding. So if we talk about the top 10 brands in India which facilitate paints and finishes, we see brands like Asian Paints, Berger, there is Kansai Nerolac Paints, there is Indigo, there is Dulux. So there are lots of these brands which you might have noticed during advertisements and some kinds of media campaigns or when you go on shops. And they all have very different ways of advertising and creating a market presence for them. So I am discussing Asian Paints because I also like their media presence and the outreach that they have created. Very interesting advertisements that we say, and also the kind of this plethora of products which we will see towards the end of the presentation, like some fan decks, color swatches, the kinds of interesting booklets and very creative, graphical and very vibrant designs that they have created. So that is the overall reason also why I am talking about this paint. One is of course their content and other is also their outreach and marketing. So that way. And anybody particularly interested in this kind of area like colors, paints, finishes, you could also approach any of these brands for internships, etc. It will give you a lot of industry exposure. So when we talk about the market share of top paint companies in India, and discussing the financial year 2020, we see some statistics like what you see on the screen. So if we look at Asian Paints, it has a huge stake over there, and then there are other paint companies also. And they keep improvising their products, they keep doing some innovations and revisions in their palettes. and based on what the market trends are, what the background research is, what people on the ground see as fashion trends or color trends, and then also what, in films and web series and other media campaigns, what kinds of colors and finishes are getting demonstrated and which are getting good responses. So there is this whole gamut of background research and market research, after which the paint industry really, comes up with their own product catalogs and then runs this entire sort of market. And interior designers work quite in association with, these kinds of product ranges and with these kinds of industry partners, because interior design does have a lot of role and interesting play of these colors and finishes. So these are some of the brands that we are talking about, and they have their presence in the market and have been operating for quite a while. So when we talk about the case of Asian Paints, it gives us some idea of different kinds of products that they have and the different kinds of ranges that they have developed. So we would like to see that. So basically they have these kinds of finishes and textures that are listed over here. So there are exterior textures which are very, very exquisite, and they create a very interesting vocabulary to your interior design projects by creating interesting wall surfaces and creating these kinds of textures. Now there is a template in which we see all these textures, but there is also a huge possibility of customizing these finishes and textures. So even that is possible. So they have this range called Apex Duracast textures, and it's a very interesting range. And within these textures, they have different kinds of subcategories. So like trowel applied finishes, there are roller applied finishes, then there are finishes that are achieved by spray gun, and then of course there may be a little permutation and combination of these. There may be a customization depending on your client's taste, budget, and what as a designer your inclination is and what you bring to the table during customization of finishes and design. And there is a site support for exterior textures. So the team can come to the site and then they could give support for creating interesting textures, especially where there is high level of customization and there is some kind of technical support which is needed from outside. So just getting a basic understanding how these exterior textures are created, that is what we will try to understand. Of course, if you go on site and you try your own hands-on experience, that would give you a much better understanding. But trying to give an overview and paint a picture over here. So the first thing is that why exterior textures are required and what is their role and significance. So basically they give a very, very distinct and very unique look to your projects, and these exterior textures ensure the best possible material usage. And also there is this benefit that there is a premium look, there is very unique aesthetic quality, and there is this interesting vocabulary that your projects can get after applying these interesting textures and surface finishes. Also, if you look from the perspective of the clients, sometimes there may be some problems during construction, some undulations, some uneven surfaces. So these could be hidden by using these exterior textures. And also a very important point is that there is this benefit to the consumer, that there is added protection from weather related adversities which these finishes and textures they give, because usually there is a certain thickness of the texture for the interiors, let's say 10 to 12 and if you create some additional textures and some kind of a film thickness, it adds to the further protection. It sometimes also adds to the insulation. It depends how your texture and how your finishes are designed. So there are lots of benefits, both at the ends of the architects, interior designers and designers, as well as the clientele who are going to use these kinds of finishes and create these interesting palettes for their projects. So how basically is an exterior texture selected? Now that could be done on the basis of quality of binder. So technically speaking, there would be some specifications if you read, on the packet or box of an exterior texture or a paint, and it would be mentioned whether there is an acrylic binder or there is a semi-acrylic binder or there is a cement based binder, and all these three have different properties, their different usages, and also pros and cons in terms of especially when we talk about the budget and economic capacity of the clientele also. So it depends on what is selected out of these three. So if we talk about acrylic binder, that is the best quality of binder, and it gives like a premium look to your project. And in the case of Asian paints, there is this range which is known as Apex, which has this acrylic binder, and it offers best protection because it has high binder quality, and also gives a very good texture life, and therefore the maintenance is less and the cost of ownership is overall lowest in the case of acrylic binders. Now, when we talk about this semi-acrylic binder, basically it's low quality, and it's not very good for adhesion, and it's basically synthetic, and like it could be seen as a cheaper alternative because if there are budget constraints, etc., but it does lead to the compromising on the overall quality of the project, and the life of the texture and the finish that is eventually achieved is lower, and therefore the maintenance and other costs will increase at some point. And then we have like cement based binders where we use cement like in cement paint, and that is used for adhesion, and its pricing varies with quality and percentage that is used, the content of cement which is used in this binder. And these tend to crack themselves, and they do not offer much protection, and they need a lot of water curing, so before application the surface has to be water cured. So it's also time taking, and it's not the best of the options in my personal opinion if we have to create unique interior design projects. But yes, a lot will depend on your discussions with your clientele, what is their budget, and then also one could take initiatives and responsibility in trying to make them understand that maybe the initial cost is high in the better binders, but then you don't have to keep on maintaining them, and then eventually that is better than the other kinds of binders. So that is a possibility. So also like exterior textures could be selected on the basis of film thickness. So there is a high thickness film, there is a medium thickness film, and then there are discontinuous films. And depending on what kind of texture, what kind of finish you would want to create, whether there are like very bold and prominent motifs, or there is very chic, subtle, and very sort of an impression kind of a design that you want, and not very bold motives, and whether it's like a very continuous film, or there is some kind of a very raw, rustic, customized, handmade, discontinuous film and a pattern that one would want to achieve. Those kinds of options are there, and depending on the overall kind of your project, what is the taste of the client, and what are the customized designs that are brought to the table, all of these possibilities can be explored. So when we talk about high thickness films, basically the thickness ranges from 1.5 mm to almost like 3 mm, and because it is a high thickness, there are bold patterns that could be achieved in this kind of films, and it provides very strong protection. So it's basically you have high thickness, and it gives insulation, it protects from adversities, and it can be used as a very bold sort of a language or vocabulary in your interior spaces. And mostly these are trowel applied, and it's not very difficult to create these kinds of patterns with the help of simple hand tools like a trowel. And when we talk about the medium thickness films, the range is 0.5 mm to 1.5 mm, and it could offer a range of very understated or sophisticated patterns which may not be very prominent or very bold. So they may not need a very high thick base material to sort of create those kinds of um, bold patterns which have depth or which have this kind of a high thickness. And this could be trowel, roller, spray, any kind of application based on how fine your design is, what is the level of finesse one is trying to achieve, and what is the pattern which is being designed and which is being created on a wall surface or any other surface. And then there is this discontinuous films. They offer very, very interesting, customized and unique patterns because there is a lot of variation and the film is very discontinuous. And they are normally applied through a spray, and basically how much pressure is put on the spray, how close or far it is from the surface, all those details and technical aspects, they will come handy while creating discontinuous films and creating unique customized patterns applying through this kind of a spray mechanism. So if we talk about the range of Apex Duracast textures that are provided by Asian Paints, which is the brand that is in focus for today's lecture and about which we are talking. Basically, this range of Apex Duracast textures, it is a mixture of silicaceous aggregates and in 100% acrylic copolymer based binder is what it has, and it offers excellent protection and aesthetic appeal. So these are some technical specifications, and the company does a lot of scientific research and these kinds of technical details and specification highlighting while putting forth this kind of a range in front of its users, also like designers and architects who have some sense of technical details, because they have lots of discussions with these companies and they are a part of these kinds of background researches. So it's important to have also an idea about technical terminology. And if you look at a certain catalog or have a discussion with a company or a vendor, what could be the possible discussions and what could be the possible interesting technical details. Also, they give a lot of durability, they give good binding and adhesion, they give toughness, and they also protect the substrate. So if this is your surface and on that there is a Duracast texture, the substrate will be protected. So that kind of quality check and reliability is there because of the technical details, scientific research, and also the reliability of the brand. So it is quite interesting range that they have developed. So if I talk about the range, they have like 21 unique patterns, and there are constant revisions and evolutions happening. There could be more as I speak right now while I'm recording this lecture. And there is always this freedom of choice of what top coat you would like to use. So above this texture, there is like this top coat which could be applied, and this would be even better. It would give more protection. It would be anti-algal or anti-fungal, and it will finish your look, which is like very, very chic and also performs well. So they have these ranges like Apex Ultima Metallic, or there is this Royale Glitter, or there is this Royale Premium Emulsion. So all of these possibilities are there. And within these texture ranges that have been developed, there are some trowel applied, there are some which are spray applied, and some which could be achieved through rollers. And they have tried to sort of classify and create these baskets based on the thickness and the kind of texture or finish that could be achieved. So whether it would be trowel applied or through a roller or through a spray. So, and like I said, customization is always possible. So these are some trowel applied finishes that we are going to sort of have an overview of how they are applied. So if we look at this one texture which is from the Apex Duracast range, it's called rough tex, like rough texture or rough tex is what they call it. And if you look at the image, It's like, sort of a very raw, rustic and sort of very interesting finish which we see on the screen. And it's basically 2 to 2.5 thick, and it can be applied directly onto the plaster. And because the film thickness is 2.5 which is quite thick, it is very much possible to have bold patterns which are very thicker, which have large particle sizes. And within that also, like how the application is done, what is the direction, all of that also impacts the kinds of impressions that can be created. So there could be like a vertical scratch, there could be a horizontal scratch, or there could be a slanting pattern, and there could be more. There could be a lot of customization, or there could be a permutation combination of all these 2 3 that are seen over here. So after the application of this thickness onto the plaster, then creating the patterns by creating these kinds of movements um, by the trowel. Then there is this top coat, and which could be apex or apex ultima depending on what range you pick up, what your budget is. And then it would further improve, as I told, any sort of attack from algae or fungi, and the performance is enhanced. And usually we get this in 25 kg sacks or bags, as we say. So this is a very, very simple method, but yes, of course, the application part comes with some exposure to working on site and some hands-on work. So it's possible to get trained. There is also a certification program that many paint brands they run, including Asian Paints. And once you have that training and capacity building with them, you could get a certificate, and it could really help, especially the people who paint on site, the painters and their entire staff and fraternity. So the application is quite simple, more or less we discussed that on the previous slide itself, but just to elaborate a bit, the application of primer is not required in this kind of a rough texture which is achieved by trowel. So it could be applied directly onto the plastered surface, and the material should not be diluted, of course, because we need like thick and bold patterns, and we need to have this base material and this thickness film like almost 2.5 or even 3. So it is applied basically in 2 stages. So first is where the material is deposited on the surface using a trowel or spatula. So if you have some idea working on the site, these are very basic hand tools, and like you take this spatula and you dump your material, and then there is this wooden trowel with which you can sort of create your surfaces and work towards getting these kinds of patterns. So texture is achieved by using this rectangular trowel, as I was telling you, and the film thickness has to be ensured like at least 2 and although it's written 2.5 it could also go on till 3 And yes, the number of direction, I'll have to repeat this line. Excuse me, I'll have to repeat this line. So yes, the number and direction of strokes of the plastic trowel, that also decides, the final finish. How many strokes in what direction, what is the kind of pattern that, you are achieving. And then finally, this top coat, Apex or Apex Ultima, in this case, the particular brand that we are talking about. And again, the anti-algal and anti-fungal protection, which is achieved through this application. This is the another texture, which is swirl tex, and it is slightly different from the one that we saw, on the previous slides. And it is somewhat less thick than the previous one, so 1.5 to 2 And here also it can be directly applied onto the plaster. We could get some softer patterns and sophisticated looks here compared to the previous one. And here also we could get different kinds of patterns, vertical scratch or through horizontal scratch, slanting, swirl, circular, or a permutation combination of these. And then again top coat, and also the availability, as we were discussing in the market, 25 kg sacks, which where we get these texture finishes. And the application is similar to what we saw in the case of rough texture. The final stage or the finishing stage is slightly different, because the direction of the trowel, that would ultimately decide, like, what is the pattern that you have to create, how subtle, how understated, and all those. And then finally the top coat, as we have been discussing. So it's fairly easy and not very different from what we saw in the case of rough text. This is another one which is known as cross text, and we can see these crisscross lines over here. And yes, like I keep saying, there can be customizations within crisscross lines and cross text also, depends how we are applying. And this is also like 1.5 to 2 thickness, could be applied directly onto the plaster. And basically it has a more prominent groove, and here it can also be applied the same way we have been talking about, through vertical scratching, horizontal, slanting, swirl, circular. There could be, like, this plus minus pattern, or there could be crisscross linings, and hence the crisscross pattern that is achieved through that. And again, the top coat for better performance, and it's easily available in the market. Application, again, here some difference in the finishing stage will be there, but otherwise more or less we are discussing the similar application as of now. This is Dholpur text. Now, if many of you, some of you, almost like many people would be knowing, there is this Dholpur stone, and there is some resemblance to the color and texture of the Dholpur stone. And here there could be a possibility of the brick pattern trying to replicate Dholpur stone, and then there are also possibilities of other kinds of patterns which can be achieved. So like one you saw on the previous slide, and one is this. So basically it's possible to create different kinds of patterns, whether it's tile or brick or almost looking like stone, as we see over here, inspired from the Dholpur stone, and then creating that texture out of that. And this is 1 to 1.5 so slightly thinner, and here we do apply directly onto the plaster, but there are two coats, that is a slight difference. And it's a very, very classic and timeless look. And sometimes if one is not able to afford the Dholpur stone, basically it's found in Rajasthan, it's possible to create a look which is similar to Dholpur stone. And that's why a lot of clientele ask for these kinds of looks and finishes and aesthetic appeals. And it gives a very distinct and premium upmarket finish to your wall surfaces, and quite versatile it is, and there could be many patterns that could be achieved in this kind of a texture, brick pattern or a stone pattern or some kind of a very, very customized pattern. And again, the top coat is applied, and it's available in the market easily. So like I was telling, it is a two coat texture application, and on the prepared surface, first an initial coat of 0.5 is applied by a simple trowel. And for a brick pattern, it's quite easy. A masking tape could be used, and with the help of those sort of guidelines, a brick or tile pattern could be created once the base coat is set. And then there is the second coat which is applied over it, which is like 1 approximately, and that's also done by trowel. And then the suitable design is made and tape is removed. For stone pattern, the second coat is applied over base coat, again with a trowel or a spatula, and it is more close to looking like a stone, and the previous one was more like a tile or brick. And here the important thing is that post drying overnight, then the top coat of Apex or Apex Ultima is required, and it gives a very desired shape, very, very close to how a stone looks like. And there is a lot of possibility of getting different kinds of random patterns along with customization. And then there are like roller applied finishes. So we discussed the trowel applied finishes so far, and there is also this application of roller, which gives some kind of a refined and sophisticated finish. So this is one solution that fine texture gives, what you see on the screen. And it's again 0.5 to 1 mm thick coat, and it is applied onto the plaster. But here the coating with an exterior primer is required, and it gives very sophisticated finishes. There is a wide range of finishes which is possible through this texture. And there is of course the need of top coat, like we have been discussing so far, for the most optimized performance and protection against algae and fungi. And of course it's available easily in 25 kg bags. And like you see on the screen, these are very popular rollers that are available in the market, and the application is simple. So first of all, surface needs to be coated with one coat of exterior primer, like we were discussing that this needs a primer, and it has to be 100% dilution so that the primer can be put easily without any kinds of lumps, etc. And for applying a texture like this and getting a desired finish, it's always recommended to have a very good quality roller, such as a honeycomb roller, which is available in the market. And it is possible to dilute the material, up to a maximum of 10%, so that the workability is not compromised. That's what the maximum is allowed. And then the roller is, moved in different directions, and you could get the desired finish. And also, this normal range, which is sort of provided, or which is sort of sketched as a do-it-yourself also in several kits. There is always the possibility of customization, which I personally like, so I have been talking about it quite a bit. With interesting inputs, we can customize all these finishes and create very interesting textures and finishes. And we will go with the top coat again, and it will provide the overall protection to the surface. This is fine texture, and this is another kind of solution that you see on the screen, which could be achieved. And this is another one which has certain sort of motives, and which are achieved through some stencils. So if you go to a paint company or you go to the market, you would see lots of stencils over there. It's possible to have that. And especially for kids, if you are creating some interesting interior design projects which need lots of vibrant primary colors and some kinds of motifs, these kinds of stencils and textures and finishes, they help a lot in creating a very vibrant environment for the kids. And of course, all ages, it depends what is your taste, doesn't have to be only kids. So this is another kind of pattern or a texture that we see over here. This is again fine text, and these are this is a range, and these different possibilities can be seen over here. And then we have these spray applied finishes. Yeah, so like the spray gun that I was talking about, and there is this pebble text as one of the outcomes or one of the ranges that the Apex Duracast Textures has developed. Within that, there is this bubble finish. We see like sort of bubbles on the wall surface. So that's one finish that we see. This is a sort of understated and more subtle bubble finish that could be achieved. So here basically the premium acrylic based product that offers symmetry and consistency of finish, that is applied on a surface coated with exterior primer. So here also we have exterior primer, and there is this high degree of flexibility on about what pattern you could achieve. So because it could be in your hands to control the distribution of bubbles and density and what sizes do you want to take. So it totally depends on what is your taste and what kind of finish do you want. And the finish is hugely dependent on the skill and how it is applied. So again, what is the material type, how much is it diluted, and what is the pressure with which the spray gun is being operated, what is the diameter of the nozzle or the size of the tip, and the distance from the wall surface or any other surface where the spray application is happening. And it is available in 30 kg pails in the market. And application is fairly simple. So surface first needs to be coated, then there is this exterior primer at 100% dilution, and there has to be air assisted spraying, so that is very important. Skill is important in this case, and material can be diluted maximum by 5% if needed. So if your nozzle size is such, or if you're not able to spray it properly, there may be, some dilution in that case. And there is also this hopper gun apparatus which is available in the market that could make this finish more sort of professional and can make things easy while spraying and achieving a proper pressure. So those kinds of apparatus and tools are available in the market, and different variations are possible, like we discussed in the previous slide, depending on how one is applying. And there is always this top coat after overnight drying, which will give you the perfect finish and a very nice texture. So these are some of the sketches, some of the tools that you see over here, and this is basically a very illustrated summary of some of the applications that we were discussing during the previous slide. So this is a pebble text system specially, which is being illustrated here, and it's a very simple step-by-step mechanism which I also talked about on the previous slide. So maybe this will give you a more graphical information, and it would be easier to comprehend this. So within pebble text, there is also head cut finish, and it depends what your clientele likes and what your mutual tastes are. So it could be something like that, which is not bulbous and roundish, but more like flattish or head cut. And this is a variation of pebble text itself, and it's also quite easily achievable by pressing and flattening, the bubbles that have been created. And some time has to be given for the surface to dry up, and then there is of course the top coat, and one has to really take care while designing these kinds of finishes. And just to summarize everything that we were discussing, there's this snapshot of the Duracast range, and I've just put a question mark because you could call it something other than the snapshot, but it's a very interesting phrase, like how to really understand in an overview manner. So there is this sort of your texture finish, how it is applied, which is the kind of binder which is used over here, what is the film thickness, and then what are the kinds of finishes that can be achieved. So these kinds of tables, charts and inventories, they really help us sort of understanding things, summarizing them well, and then having this clarity, what is applied through trowel, what is applied through spray. So this is a very interesting manner of summarizing things, and some kinds of summaries and tables and charts like this could be a part of your assignments and your exam as well. So it would be nice to go through them. And how to get a great finish, that's quite important, even though we know the technical specifications, even though we have the product. So yes, it's very, very important to have skills. It's important to have some kind of a technical expertise or some kind of a technical help if it is required. It is important to have inspection at the site before starting the work. What is the condition? Are there any leakages? Is the site old or new? Is there too much dampness or seepage? And are the surfaces clean? Are they undulated? So all of that is very, very important. So first a site has to be seen, and then there are possibilities of designing what kind of film thicknesses, what kinds of patterns, and what kind of designs one would want to have. And of course then the top coat is important, as we have been discussing. Whatever our design be, whatever the thickness of the film be, but this top coat would be very important to take care of the overall finish and the surface. So Asian Paints really supports your projects and other brands also, but we are discussing about this one particular brand. So they have lots of color swatches that you would get on demand. They allow for sampling. They allow for interesting color creation. They give a lot of technical support. Your queries get answered. And also just to understand, what kind of texture would have what kind of coverage in terms of the area, the square feet per kg, and what is the material cost, again the rupees per square feet. This is very important to understand how what are the market prices and how things work. So basically, depending upon what your thickness of the film is, your material coverage and material cost would differ, and what is the kind of finish that you have tried to achieve, it will differ a lot. So from a rough texture, which is like 15 to 20 rupees per square feet, to a pebble text 5 to 7 per square feet, it will be a wide range. Now, more the thickness, more the coverage, more the bold patterns, more the customization, more the time invested, there could be higher cost compared to more sort of uniform and mechanized finish that you could get. So those kinds of variations and ranges are available. And it's very important to be cautious about the site conditions and to really understand what is the climate, which region, what are the different kinds of available materials and resources at your disposal, and what are the market trends, and how much is the cost of for your karigars and labor. So it's important to also keep a track of all these and do a little market survey. And yes, one has to check the availability of trained applicators, because if the skill is not there, then the desired result will be nowhere close to what is anticipated. So it's very important, and hence a step like certification and capacity building and prior experience, these help a lot. So these are some catalogs and some tools and some these technical sort of data which are very visually present, presented through different media. These are there at our disposal, and we can really get through this plethora of products and ranges which are available. And this is like a sort of a summary that decorative paints could be applied on interior walls. For the exterior walls, the finish will be different. For wood finishes, it will be different. For enamels, it will be different. So for wood, we usually have this PU, melamine and UV, and these are quite expensive and they need a lot of skill. So right now I'm giving an overview. To discuss all of these in today's lecture is difficult to accommodate. But depending on whether it's an interior wall or exterior wall, or it's a wood finish or a metal finish, there will be this different range of products that is available, which you could apply and get a desired result. So these are some products which are given by Asian Paints, and these are different names that you will see in their company profile. We were talking about Apex and Apex Ultima. And then there is this entire range of Royale. There is also, Utsav and Tractor and so on. So these different kinds of ranges are possible. And there are also, different color tools that the company has developed. They have these innovations. They have sort of Color Express, another tool, which helps us understand different shades and, different kinds of color applications. And they also deliver the requested shade within 72 hours. These are the kinds of products and catalogs and tools I was talking about, which make it very handy for somebody to understand the entire color palette and different kinds of swatches which are available. And it could help us in sampling, and also we get technical assistance over and above all these kinds of tools. So they also have a visualization surveys. They have color centers in few cities. One could really go there on those in those centers and see how the color is made. You could actually create your own color palette over there. There is also virtual presence. So there is color spectra online. There is also color visualizer. There are some softwares which are available. You could just upload your drawings and images, and then you can see pick and drag and see how your build space, interior space looks like. So all of those possibilities are there. So visualization helps really understand what is the sort of color that would go well depending on the size of the room and what is the taste of the client, etc. So all of these possibilities, we see different tools, different software applications, visualizers, and very easy and convenient methods of understanding the color application. Also books, magazines and journals like this, which accommodates color trends and market surveys. Also some kind of a prediction of what is going to happen as a trend, you know. They do that color next also. I like this very fascinating research. What could be the trends for the future, depending on what is happening, you know, in the market, in the media. There is another tool which is Color Spectra Pro. It's for professionals that also helps understand different kinds of color families and then distinct colors within each family. It's a very, very huge set of colors. This is the store that I was talking about. It's, you know, they give this color consultancy. It's like a retail store where one could just go and get the experience about the world of colors. And then shade tools and swatches like this. So we have been seeing a lot about colors today. So I would just like to quote, you know, the very famous Kandinsky. Color is a power which directly influences the soul. So like I said, the paint industry and the colors, they have a very profound role, you know, in the interior design projects, in interior architecture projects. So we will be summarizing, you know, this week next time. And these are some references. Thank you very much.